On podcast tips tonight, you're going to learn why our guest Rob Cesternino and I have podcasts, and so we're going to talk a lot about how we got started, what that process was, and kind of our whys of why we're podcasting. But my name is Rob Greenlee, and this is podcast tips, this is episode 20. So stay with us here. I'm going to bring Rob up to the stage here in a second. But this show is also an audio and video podcast. So if you wanted to go check it out over in Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you're welcome to head over there and watch or listen to the last 19 episodes that I've done of this program with all sorts of terrific podcasters on all sorts of cool podcasting topics. And also give the new Podcast 2.0 apps out there. And I will share a kind of like a link to that, so you too can let me see if I can find that really quick. I thought I had it staged here, but anyway, it's at podcasting2.org/apps. And what's cool about these new podcast listening apps is that you can tap into the latest and greatest podcast features that even the bigger platforms like Apple and Spotify are not supporting yet. So if you want to play around with some cool new stuff, go to podcasting2, and that's the number 2.org, and you can get access to that. So, and we also want you to ask questions tonight and to get involved in this show. I'm going to bring it up on the screen so people can see your questions as well, and we'll try and pull away from our discussion, Rob and I's discussion, to answer your questions as best as we can. And then lastly here, before I pull up Rob, we do have a giveaway tonight for StreamYard Puddles Duck and a Puddles, or well, I guess it's a Puddles mug as well, because his mug is on there. So you can win that if you stay till the end of the show. And just type into your comment field in your preferred kind of viewing platform that you're in, hashtag the yard, and that will get you automatically added, just like what this person has done, is just add the yard there. You can see at the end of that comment there. If you happen to be listening to that, if you watch the live program, you can enter the giveaway on the show. So come over and check out a live show some night if you're only listening to the on-demand audio podcast part of this, and maybe get a chance to win one of these giveaways. So anyway, well, let's move on and bring Rob Cesternino up to the stage, and let's get him going here. So let's get him up there.
Rob.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much for jumping on a call. You're on the East Coast with me now, so it's all in the same time zone. So that's always awesome.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but you're a founder and host of Rob Has a Podcast and the RHAP network.
Yeah.
And Rob is also a 2-time player on the CBS Survivor Series and a many-time People's Choice Podcast Award winner. So you've been doing this quite a while, Rob. So I've been following your career for a long time, and we've done a couple of podcasts
podcasts together.
Right. And so it's always great to have you on my podcast, because we always have such a great time doing it. So anyway, so what's new with you, Rob? I mean, are you still doing the same stuff with Rob Has a Podcast? You're following reality television. What's been that journey for you? So we can help audience that may not be familiar with you.
Sure.
Kind of how you got into podcasting. What was the attraction?
Yeah. So my podcast journey was that I started Rob Has a Podcast back in 2010. And it was, the idea was that I was going to be recapping reality TV shows. And really over that time, the network has really grown beyond just me to a network of hosts. Our intention is to be like the ESPN of reality TV. Basically, almost any show that's a competition, a reality TV competition, we have a show for that. And so we've just been continuing with the focus of building a community of fans who love these shows and connecting people all around the world. There's sort of like the water cooler conversation around these different reality TV franchises.
Yeah, that's been a terrific model for you, and I think you were one of the early ones that really kinda, I think pioneered this around building a really strong community around a TV program. But but there's something different about the TV programs, that really made this, conducive to building community, right? Is that what
Yeah.
you saw in the early days?
Well, the thing about reality TV, it's like a hybrid between like it's like a TV show, but it's also that there are fanatics like a sport. So it sort of like rides the line in between,
Mhm.
fandom and entertainment. And so the great thing about the reality TV shows is that you have the participants in the shows who are like very interested in coming on and then engaging with the audience. And then you have the fans who are very interested in coming on and then making their opinions felt. And so we've been very fortunate that we got in at a good time. All of the shows that we started covering are all, for the most part, still on the air. Survivor and Big Brother are still going like very, very strong. And then there's been so many new additional reality TV competitions that we have been able to cover over the years. And so it's given us a lot of opportunities to have a lot of fun over 14 years.
I know, exactly. That's true, that's true. It's as long as I've kind of known you. I think I first met you at the awards for the People's Choice, Podcast Awards. I think it
Very
was
early
in
on.
person, right,
Yes.
totally,
Yes.
totally. And so and that was exciting. I mean, you took home a trophy that night, and that was fantastic. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about what's going on right now. I've been hearing a lot of talk about, Mr. Beast,
Yeah.
being starting to be viewed as like a reality TV show of sorts. What's your opinion on that? I was just
Sure.
curious.
So, of course, anybody who is, making content or watching content on YouTube knows about Mr. Beast. And Mr. Beast's videos have really just like continued to grow in scope over the years to where that Mr. Beast's YouTube channel is often like a reality show. He's done a lot of formats where
Yeah.
he's done an original Squid Games that he's, gotten 100 people for aged 1 to 100 to be in a competition and then basically are competing to win $500,000. But Amazon recently signed Mr. Beast to a $100 million deal
Yeah.
to create a reality TV show format for Amazon Prime, which is kind of wild because that his reach on YouTube is so much bigger than he would even get on Amazon Prime. But I think he sees it as an opportunity to like really get some media attention that where he has like all of the attention of the world on YouTube, but I don't think that he necessarily gets reported on by like the mainstream players. And I
Yeah.
think that this is an opportunity for him to really just like grow his brand and the awareness around his brand like even more because what he's doing on YouTube is already like truly incredible.
Yeah, so do you see yourself maybe doing a show that kinda covers Mr. Beast?
We will absolutely cover the Mr. Beast reality show when it airs on Amazon. And just in talking
Right.
about it, that people have said, why don't you cover what the competitions Mr. Beast is doing on Rob as a podcast? And I think it's a really
Yeah,
good
exactly.
idea.
Yeah. I think it would be too. It'd be an interesting little twist on it, and I mean, there's so many people that follow that channel that I'm sure you could grow a huge audience of
Yeah.
fans, right?
Well, I think
So
that it's smart in a lot of different ways. That it's smart for us in terms of like that there has a bigger audience like that these Mr. Beast videos, 300 million, 400 million views compared to the 5 million people that watch
yeah,
Survivor every
right.
single week. So it's definitely like a very smart idea.
Yeah, I would agree. So I want to pull up on the screen your website here, and just so if you could share a little bit, Rob, about what you're doing with your own podcast and kind of how you're kind of fitting into this video world,
Sure.
which you've always been kind of involved on the video side for many.
I was a very early adopter in terms of getting my podcasts on video. That I feel like
Mhm.
that the live element was really, I think since basically like 2012, I started doing, okay, we are the live after show for Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, for any of these different shows. Like right after the show, we're live with the post game to talk about these shows. And then if you're on social media, we're grabbing you and bringing you in to talk about all these different shows. And really, over this long podcast journey that I've been on, it used to be the website was like the number one place that people were going to get our content. That has really changed very much, where really, the phone and YouTube are really the number, one and two places that people are going to listen to and interact with our content. We're actually in the midst of redesigning the website and our app to really, be a little bit more 2024 in terms of what we're doing. But we have so many people that have discovered our podcasts on YouTube. And so we do a ton of live shows directly to YouTube. We record almost all of our podcasts as video. We use StreamYard for, I'd say, like 99% of what we end up doing with our podcast. We're very interested right now in exploring titles and thumbnails and thinking
Mhm.
about things that we would never have thought about some time ago with podcasts. And so really we're seeing our biggest growth coming from the YouTube side, where the podcast growth is, it's hard to find new podcast listeners, but because of YouTube and the algorithm, that we find that the discoverability is actually much easier in terms of what you're doing on YouTube. You
Yeah.
could make an incredible podcast and basically your subscribers are going to love it. And you could make an incredible YouTube video and you might end up having a huge audience that did not even know that you existed come and find your channel, and it could be a total game changer.
Yeah, I see that you're all in on creating podcast playlists in here.
Yeah.
Um, so what's your thoughts on that? I mean, is the YouTube music platform something that you think will be a growing importance,
So I
or what's
really
your
don't
thoughts on
know in
that?
terms of like YouTube podcasts. I don't know if that's necessarily like a destination that people are
Mhm.
going to in terms of listening to their podcast.
Right.
We're very interested in like the YouTube proper format of like that. We're doing a lot of our podcasts on video. That are, if we don't do a podcast on video, people ask for it on video. A lot of people, I really think since COVID,
The
since
journey
the
to host a
pandemic,
Survivor
the
podcast has been the story
the
of
people working from home, I think, has really greatly increased. And I think there's a lot of people that are just like working from home and they have on their Apple TV or
Yeah.
however, Fire Stick, are watching our podcasts as they're working, as opposed to like listening to them in the car.
Mhm.
So our YouTube numbers are really strong for all of the podcasts. So I'm not sure if people are doing YouTube podcasts per se, but people are really enjoying and commenting, listening to our podcasts and watching them on YouTube. And we're also doing a
Yeah.
lot with YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a natural fit for your particular genre because what you're covering is television, right? So it's I would think that your audience is very kind of visually oriented, but what's the balance that you're seeing between the the um, the views or the plays versus the downloads? I mean, are you seeing a percentage distribution between those that's 50-50? Is it 80-20, 75-25? What would you say?
Yeah, so it depends on what we cover, and what I find is that the YouTube numbers I really feel like are a more reliable metric in terms of judging podcast performance, because really often with podcasting, especially when you have like an established audience, you have your subscribers, and you might do a great episode and you might do a terrible episode, but I feel like the downloads don't really tell you much. You might have, you know 30,000 downloads for one episode, and then 29,000 downloads for the next episode. there's not a lot to go off of because your subscribers are your subscribers. But on YouTube, you put up a video that people are not interested in, you're going to know that the comments are there, the views, you can look at the audience graphs, and there's a lot more information that you could take away. And if you make a great video on YouTube and you start seeing like all of the views come pouring in, like you really know that you've got something. And there's just nothing like that in podcasting right now that is like algorithmically focused, where if you make a great podcast, you end up finding that podcast getting recommended to more people other than some type of like Apple Podcast, Spotify promotion.
Yeah, no, that totally makes perfect sense. Don McGuire asked a question: when will StreamYard fix the event status on Facebook? I like the link-based structure, and the event feature is messing up my podcasts.
Do you want me to field that one?
Oh, I mean, if you want to, Rob, I was just going to comment that I've been seeing a lot of errors with the Facebook connection in the scheduling side of things. Right. Yeah, but go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. I think that from what I'm hearing, StreamYard has some of the top people working on this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. But it has been a little buggy lately. I don't know if you've noticed it too, that there is, and it's not StreamYard's fault, would be my immediate comment.
Yeah.
Facebook has not been the most reliable tool. I know that they've been playing around with areas that they support, areas that they don't support. So their APIs could be getting changed, but yet all their partners may not be always aware that they're doing those things. So it's always a complicated relationship. Now I would say that the YouTube platform and X and LinkedIn have been fairly stable, but you do have to kind of play around with those. I mean, what's your experience? Are you streaming to all those platforms too, Rob?
Yes. When we do our live show last night was Survivor night. We're streaming to YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not currently, this show isn't streaming to Twitch currently because I don't believe StreamYard has a channel over there. So it would be cool if they did have a channel. I would love to be everywhere, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we like StreamYard so much, is that we have the ability to go where the audiences are, and we could name our podcast whatever we want. So we can use, a hashtag on Twitter, and then have a different name for YouTube. And then for people who like to be in the Twitch ecosystem, they can watch it there, or in our Facebook group, they can watch it there. So it's really nice that everybody can sort of be able to get this broadcast wherever they want it.
Yeah, and it's not that StreamYard doesn't support Twitch. It's more that the StreamYard kind of company hasn't set up a Twitch account over there, because I don't know what the reason is, but anyway, it would be cool if this show could be over there as well. But other shows that I do on this platform, on the StreamYard platform, are over on Twitch too. So it's just one of those things, there is a lot of capability in that destination type of area around even setting up custom destinations. I know some people will actually stream to like a Wowza or a Restream, and then have other platforms that they're streaming to as well. So there's a lot of capabilities that are in the platform here. And then let's see if this thank you. Okay. My new swag. So someone got their swag from a giveaway from a past show. So that's fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. I know that we've talked many times. So I am very, very familiar with what you're doing and those kind of things. But increasingly we're hearing a lot of talk. And in last week's episode, we had a person on that came out of the radio industry that was talking kind of about building community. And I know that that's the big thing that, really when I look at what you've done over the last 14 years, is that you've really developed a strong connection with your audience. And it's always been, a capability that a host, it just doesn't come to them automatically. I'm sure you've had to kind of try things and experiment, but it also can't be too contrived either, else people aren't going to, connect, right? So how do you approach community? What's your kind of overall philosophy for that, or is it just your natural personality and how you like to be with people?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think that community is really the most important part of making a podcast. I think that that's what separates us from just being radio in terms of what we do. It's the back and forth with the audience. I think that is that what really makes this special. I think that the most of the great podcasts that you may have connected with often, that there are hosts and they're interacting with feedback from the audience and bringing that into the show. And I think that that's what really is like the special sauce in all of this. So I always have tried to
Mhm.
incorporate a lot of audience engagement in everything that we're doing. And so, like, one of the nice things about being able to do stuff that's live is you have this chat and you have the ability to take these questions and jokes that are from the
Yeah.
chat and then take them live into the show. And so I really think it's super important. And I think that's what keeps people feeling connected to you as a creator and your shows when you make the audience feel like they're a part of what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do, I do think, and this has been my experience even with this program, as you can see, Rob, that this tool of being able to bring in the audience into the program, throughout the program, is just fantastic, and you haven't always had that, right? So you've had to work with other aspects to be able to
Sure.
bring people into the program.
Yeah.
So, right.
Sure. Prior to, being live on StreamYard, in the very early days, we would have to like, okay, here are our emails that we got. And in the very early days of doing our live streaming, that we had a producer who was in the chat and then taking the questions and then putting them onto like a PowerPoint. And then we would bring up his screen and say, okay, so-and-so has this question.
Yeah.
That, there's hasn't been anything that we've used that's made it easier than to just take a comment from somebody in the chat and then go ahead and just put it on the screen and then answer it. We do that constantly on our Survivor and Big Brother coverage.
Do you ever use the StreamYard giveaway tool at all for anything that you're doing?
Rob, I didn't even know that that existed.
You didn't? Oh, okay.
No.
Well, here, let me quick, and it's probably good for everyone to see this, but they do have a tool that's kind of available to all plan holders.
Hmm.
And let me pull it up here, and you can see what it looks like here.
Wow.
Get it up here, add it to the stage, and other people can see
Giveaway
this.
tool.
It's a giveaway tool. It's at streamyard.com/giveaway. And it basically connects to your show. So if you look at this drop down tool, I've connected to this live stream because it's recognized because this tool's logged into my account. And then I just set up a little matching text. It's like a hashtag text
Hmm.
right down here. And then all I do is hit start collecting comments. And what it will do is it'll go out there and grab all of
Yeah.
the comments that are coming in, like this one here, that will actually
Yeah.
come into the program. So you could set up your own hashtag if you want,
Okay.
or you can set it to not require a hashtag, and just every time a person makes any kind of a comment, it'll add them to the drawing list.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't take duplications, right? So it only will take um, one entry per person. So that's how that works.
Hmm.
So it's actually a lot of fun. I mean, I do it
Yeah.
every week, and if you can also do multiple giveaways too. So you can do it multiple times during the show. There's a little tab that you can click on that will enable you to do another giveaway if you want.
And how does the giveaway get determined?
It's an algorithm that just randomly selects a winner.
Wow.
I mean, you'll see it at the end of the show. It actually
Okay.
has confetti and things flying up in the air and stuff like that. I like to play some music when I'm doing it, so
Hmm.
it creates that kind of festive feeling to it. But
Yeah.
and then the winner
I'm
comes
I'm
up,
gonna try
shows
this
on the
tomorrow.
screen. What's that?
I'm gonna do this tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. and so the winner comes up on the screen, and all I do is tell the audience that if you're the winner, just send me an email and give me your address or whatever, so I can ship whatever prize to them. So
Yeah.
that's as simple as, yeah. I mean, it's actually a really interesting tool. I've really
Mhm.
enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that tool. So let me let's move on. I know we've got a bunch of questions coming in, and we talked about community, but how important now for you is, I know you went through the pandemic period, and prior to that you were doing in-person
Yeah.
conferences or events.
Sure.
Are you still doing conferences and events now, or are you?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. It took us a little while to come back. We ended up canceling a couple back in 2020, but then we had our first
Mhm.
live show back in early 2022, and then we've just been, back at it. Really, last fall we ended up doing 3 cities over the course of the Survivor season, so that was quite a bit. This spring, I'm really just doing one live show. We're going to be live in Chicago on May 8th, and we have a sellout crowd at the Athenaeum Theater. Going to be about 800 people for a live Survivor viewing and then podcast taping with the audience.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, it's not easy to put on those kinds of things, but
Nope.
I would imagine. I've been to one of your live in-person events before. I think I met you I think it was in Los Angeles, I think, but
Hmm.
it could have been somewhere else. But, there's a lot of people there. People were connecting with each other, and it's this kind of this factor that I talk about a lot on the program around, getting your community to communicate with each other. Not necessarily all the communication happening between the audience or your community and the host. So, I mean, Rob, you only have so much time, so it's hard to pay attention to everyone, especially as you build a bigger community, right? So do you have like other people that you've designated in the community to be touch points for you too? I mean, how are you fostering this community development?
Yeah. So the greatest tool that we ever had for being able to bring this community together was that we started a private Facebook group when I launched on Patreon back in January of 2014. I was a pretty
Mhm.
early adopter on Patreon. And one of the early Patreon perks we had was a patron only Facebook group. And that was really where that for the first time we connected all of the people who were like enjoying this thing individually, and then we've put them virtually in the same room together, and then them just like bouncing off of each other really just like sent this thing into the stratosphere. And so that was really the thing that was like the ultimate rocket fuel for what we ended up doing over all these years, was just having all of our biggest supporters be in one place. And they fought, and then we were also then doing the live events a couple times a year. So then you'd have people in the Facebook group making these friendships, then going to the events and then meeting in person.
Mhm.
And I can't even tell you the number of like great friends that happened, couples that happened, marriages that happened,
People, yeah.
babies. I mean, it's really been just such an incredible thing to see all of the people that ended up coming together around was just loving the same podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome that you can have that kind of community that connects with each other, and it's probably pretty amazing for you to see happen. So, Don has another comment in here about the Instagram platform. I know that we're all trying to make
Yes.
Instagram work for us
Rob, I
on.
like you're not shying away from the tough questions.
Of course not on this show. Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean, these are all valid questions. I mean, Instagram is striving to be a live streaming platform. I think they've got a little ways to go, and StreamYard is doing everything they can to try and embrace that. That's not to say that it's an easy thing to do. Are you Are you doing it, Rob?
I tried it once, and it was not the most streamlined experience that I've ever had. I think that if we got it a little bit easier, I think I would definitely use it more.
Yeah. Well, I think if they can get the bugs worked out on it, I think it will be a much better platform to
Yeah.
work with. But
It's a bit of
this
a
whole
two-step process
yeah, it
of
is,
that
and
you
it's
need to
kind of
create the StreamYard and then also then go into your Instagram to then like basically like link up the stream key.
right while you're doing the show live. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because you can't activate it until it's active
Hmm.
to actually go live. It's almost like a second layer of I don't know why they did it that way. It doesn't make much sense to me, but that's all Instagram.
Right.
so, so hopefully that will get fixed over time. I would love to see. There's other platforms out there too that I would love to see StreamYard stream to give content creators full access to, be TikTok or to even Rumble, which is another big growing platform out there that seems to be picking up a lot of viewers. It's a little controversial platform, but it's nonetheless a direct competitor to YouTube, right?
Hmm.
So it's interesting. Are you playing around with Rumble at all, or have
Honestly,
you?
I'm not super aware of it.
Oh, you're not. Okay, that's fine. It's fine, but it's an up and coming platform. So if you're not aware of it,
Hmm.
um, it says here, Rick Savoya says, I've had issues with Facebook in the past. They still like to flag the music in my open and close, even though I have a valid license. It's only a platform that gives me that hassle or headache. I think that's happening increasingly as well
Hmm.
on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing that kind of a crackdown on copyright. I do believe there have been a few companies out there that have been actively working on trying to integrate music licensing clearance into these social platforms. It's been an active thing that's been going on for many years. I had conversations with one big one back when I was working for Lipson,
Hmm.
and that was something I kind of warned the company that this may be coming, but it's also one that is kind of indicative of the landscape right now of how technology is being used to identify things. And I mean, what's your philosophy on it, Rob? I mean, as you think about your own music and your own content.
Yeah, I mean, really, we shy away from doing anything with music. I mean, the YouTube copyright strike, and not that you get like a strike like back you like you used to, but you get flagged. A lot of times I will, use the features on StreamYard where I'm showing things. And a lot of times, like
Mhm.
I'm talking about, okay, here's something that's going on Twitter. And I was showing and this isn't music per se, but I was showing like, okay, here's like this, look at this tweet. And somebody like in a tweet had like a clip of the Survivor episode. And then I got YouTube has notified you are in violation of the copyright. Like it was, the sound wasn't even on. And it was like a little box in a tweet. So the AI and the algorithm, like that they are not playing around. And so I'm surprised to hear that about Facebook. I really have not heard that about a copyright issue on Facebook as much as
Yeah.
I have heard on YouTube.
Yeah. No, I I definitely agree. I think it's a fairly new thing, is what we're seeing here. And Ryan also brings up in a comment here, Twitch suspended my account over guest behavior. How can I get my Twitch back? Well, I don't know. That's kind of up to Twitch, right?
Hmm.
And Twitch actually is owned by Amazon. So that's kind of I think you just have to contact them. And I don't know what that guest behavior was, but obviously Twitch didn't appreciate it, and it wasn't part of what they accept in the platform. So some of these things can be a little difficult, Rob, to actually know
Hmm.
what these platforms will allow. I know that the YouTube platform does have kind of like what they call community guidelines, and they will let content creators know what those limits are.
Hmm.
But and sometimes, I think content creators get surprised by this stuff.
Yeah. If they suspended an account over the guest behavior, I think we'd really need to know what the guest was doing.
Yeah, right.
They do not suspend a Twitch account lightly.
No, I would think probably it must have been pretty significant, right? And it says in the early days, we went live on Twitch. Well, I think the platform can still do live on Twitch. So,
Definitely can.
Just obviously, you need to watch your guest behavior.
Watch what the guests are doing. That's the good thing that Rob has me on, and we're not on Twitch, so I can do whatever I want because we're not even on Twitch.
Right, and you've been known to do lots of wild and crazy things on my podcast. So I wouldn't at all be surprised, Rob.
Yeah. So we'll see. Let's see how that if 400 more people put hashtag the yard, we got a big surprise plan tonight.
Well, there's plenty of you out there watching here, and definitely get your entry in to win the StreamYard mug and Puddles duck, which it's probably inappropriate for me to show Puddles behind, so I should probably.
I think it's okay. We're not on Twitch. I think it's fine. Yeah.
He is a form of a guest, so
yeah,
right. So we have to be careful of that. It says here, can't looks like
file an appeal here. They're saying,
right, filing an appeal. Well, that's common, I think, even on YouTube, that you can possibly do that. I don't know if you're going to be successful on doing that, but it says here, Square Table Degenerates ask question, connecting with the audience is key. It's ridiculous people that ignore the chat. Got it. Yeah. I mean, I guess I've heard many people say that if you're going to do live, you're kind of doing your audience a disservice by not paying attention to the chat, right? If you've got lots of people commenting and giving you feedback, you probably should, because that's kind of the advantage of being live, right?
Well, it's that I would say it's a blessing and a curse, because that you could be doing a live podcast and then to be reading the chat, it's a little bit like, okay, well, now you're driving while distracted. And so that I do think that there are times when it can decrease the quality of the conversation if you and I are like constantly looking at the chat. And it really depends on how many people you have chatting. Sometimes after these Survivor episodes or Big Brother episodes, the chat is flying by, and it's very hard to be present in the conversation and also be following the chat. And then the chat might be talking about, oh, I didn't like that he just said that. And then there's like impulse to, okay, well, let me address the person in the chat that said that they disagreed with me and that I'm stupid. Like, no, I'm not stupid. And then you end up, especially for what I do, where I'm making a podcast and also a live stream. So the person who's listening to the podcast tomorrow doesn't care what the people in the chat were saying. And so if the chat has something interesting to contribute to the conversation, great. Let's take the question from the chat and then answer it. But then I find a lot of times, and not that I'm perfect, sometimes I have podcast hosts who end up getting very distracted. Like, you ask them a question and they might say like, oh, I'm sorry, I got caught up in the chat. Where if I'm doing a podcast with somebody and then I see them typing in the chat and I'm seeing their chats come up, like, hey, eyes on the road, what are we doing here?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, one of the things that I really like is, if I have a producer behind the scene, you can star the comments in the chat, and then let's see all of the questions and comments that came up, and now let's address the comments from the chat.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that once you reach a certain kind of scale of commenting in here, I think most of the comments that I have coming in on, at least on this program, is fairly manageable. But you're right, Rob. I think if you get like a show where it's getting hundreds of people watching and they're actively commenting all of them and they're talking to each other and stuff, and that's just flying by, right? It's not going to be um, as easy to monitor that and just keep up with it. And also like the camera switching that I'm doing here too. And Beauty Bubble in the chat asked, the chat also over time begins to know one another. Okay, and that's what I was saying earlier. And also that provides a deepened relationship with the host and the show. And that
Yeah.
I
That's
think
what
I
you're
said that
ideal.
earlier. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is the power. And oftentimes if a and I've seen this happen already on this show, is where an audience member will pose a question and another audience member will actually answer the question. So
Mhm.
it's actually helps sometimes to do that. I still like to cover it on the show, but this is also a video podcast too. So you could go to Apple Podcasts and actually watch this, and you will be able to see all the comments on the screen as you hear the discussion around them.
Mhm.
So that is one difference about this show, but it's also available on replay off of all of the like YouTube and other platforms too. So if you're just listening to the audio of this, you are missing out on a little bit of the show. So as you distribute your programs in audio, what's your technique for making sure that audience member, if it's a video show as well, gets brought along? Is there anything that you do that's kind of unique?
In what way, Rob?
Well, just I like how you talk about things.
Yes.
To Because some of your shows are done in video as well
Mhm.
as audio, right? So you're
Right.
putting it out as an audio podcast, but you're also putting out the video too. But so as you think about, I mean, what's your weighting of how you think about how important the content is for the audio side versus the video side?
Yeah. So I think that for most of what we do, like it has to work for both. They think that we don't really do a lot of podcasts where if you're just listening to the podcast, it's not going to make sense. And so, like a lot of times, I think the video will enhance it, but it can't be that, it doesn't make sense. It's not something that you can just listen to as a
Right.
podcast. And that's really a challenge in terms of like what we do. I had done a survey recently of our audience of, do you prefer what we do as a podcast or as video? And I think it was about 65% of the audience said they still prefer like what we do as a podcast, but
Mhm.
5 years ago probably would have been 90%, prefer it as a podcast. So that YouTube number has grown and I think it's just continuing to grow. That's really where I feel like that there's more and more people that just everybody just loves YouTube as like these other like streaming platforms, charge money for, memberships to Netflix and all this stuff. YouTube is just the one thing. Everybody has it. Everybody watches it. And there's just, so much opportunity on YouTube.
Do you think that there's an opportunity for even the video side of what you're doing to work with Spotify on the video side? Are you doing
So
anything to direct
I'm
upload to
not.
Spotify?
I'm not. I've seen the where you can do that, but I haven't done it, and I think I haven't seen any creators do it yet. But I have seen that you have the ability to do it. Is that something that you've done, Rob?
Well, it's kind of like the next step that I want to do with this program is I'm already doing the RSS based video podcast. So I've got the edited to some degree video version of this show that I produce and
Hmm.
upload for the podcast. So it's just a matter of hopping over to Spotify and doing the same thing over there. And because I've got the video all produced and ready to
Hmm.
go, so it's just a matter of creating a different account on that platform. I believe the way to do it is to go through Spotify for podcasters
Right.
and upload it directly to just a video version of that show, and it will only be available on Spotify.
Hmm.
So, which is okay. I mean, I think we've seen with the recent change that Spotify made with Joe Rogan, that now he's available on YouTube now. So you're seeing this kind of and this is a philosophy that I've had, and part of the reason why I'm doing the show is this convergence around the video and audio coming back together. But Rob, I don't know if you remember, but back in the early days of podcasting, video was like 30-40% of the podcast market. And then YouTube launched and it siphoned away all those video podcasters.
Yeah.
And now we seem to be coming back full circle again.
Yeah,
So,
I am old enough to remember having a video iPod, and then like, oh, what are the video podcasts that are out there, so that we
there's
can
a
be
bunch
able
of
to
them.
download video onto my phone, or I wasn't even a phone then; it was just to my iPod.
Yeah, or back in the day when it was a kind of like a Pocket PC device. I mean, I was involved in the early days of even before podcasting started. I was doing a radio show, and I would transfer my radio show
Mhm.
through a deal that I had done with Microsoft
Yeah.
to Pocket PC devices, which are fairly large screen kind of pocket computers, right? And you could transfer from your Windows XP onto these little portable. That was before podcasting started. They had my Microsoft had a podcast like platform that supported audio and video. So I got paid 25 cents per download transfer to a Pocket PC back
Okay.
in those days.
Yeah.
They killed that program. I think it was costing them too much money. So it was one of those things. I was doing great with that platform. I think I was making like $5,000 a month or something like that.
Pretty good.
Just in their tools. So it was
Yeah.
one of those things that was kind of come and gone. But a lot of the content that was in that platform was video. So it was like clips from NBC Nightly News and Forbes and some of these big major publishers, right? But I think there was only like 21 content providers. So I was pushing Microsoft to support more, content creators, get more podcasters in there, right? But they chose to shut it down. That was just before they launched Windows Mobile of sorts, which was kind of weird at the time. But anyway, so we could go down this rabbit hole for forever, Rob. There's no question.
You could have
about
cost
that.
them a lot more quarters.
Well, I would have liked to have cost them a lot more, but they closed it down, and then podcasting started. So
Yeah.
anyway, it was podcasting to me in the early days wasn't really a big thing. So it was mainly streaming back then.
Mhm.
And in some ways it's kind of ironic on that side too, because streaming is kind of the direction that we're all heading towards more. So as we talk about the importance of YouTube now, and then I believe increasingly we're seeing Spotify deliver this content more as a streaming thing as well, even though it may seem like it's still a download, but in practicality, I think a lot of what Spotify is doing is on their own platform is streaming the content. So that's a little bit of a tug of war in the medium right now is between download and streaming, and that's kind of always been the tug of war that's been going on. So it's just one of those things that as technology evolves, it changes and hopefully improves. But I don't know that it always does. But so Rob, also I wanted to talk to you about as you think about the content that you're producing, and I think that is an important piece here too. I think we've talked a lot about the infrastructure and what our ideology of community is, but how do you think about the content that you're producing, and what is that glue that keeps you excited to produce the content, but also keeps your audience engaged? And what's your kind of workflow with that?
Well, for me, the thing that keeps me excited and coming back to it is that I just keep wanting to get better at what we do. And so I really came into this year like really excited to try to figure out some, new ways to get better and to try to really like grow this thing even more. And so the challenge that I faced last fall was that I think I was podcasting too much, and I really came into this year with the mindset of I'd like to scale back my personal podcasting. I'd like to I think I spent last fall probably doing 4 or 5, even 6 podcasts in a given day, and I think that was too much of a good thing. I love to podcast. I'm always going to love to podcast, but I think that what I prefer is maybe doing 1 or 2 podcasts in a day, and then working with all the people behind the scenes and the other podcasters on the network to try to build this thing and to grow it and make it better and a better experience for our audience. And so that's really where I've spent the first couple of months of this year, is trying to, talk with the audience, talk with the team, work on seeing what other people are doing that's really working, and trying to figure out ways to make RHAP better in 2024.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, what's the scope of the RAP? Did I get the acronym right?
RHAP, yeah.
RHAP is on working with partners, right? That can help produce content with about some reality TV shows that you just don't have time to do, right?
Yeah, so we have a very wide network of podcasters, probably about 30 different podcasters that work with us in one way, shape, or form. Some people host multiple shows, other people are very specific on their niche. And so I have a lot of people that work behind the scenes in terms of producing and editing and posting. And then the podcasters are out there and really doing a great job trying to have the same type of sensibility that I've cultivated with the audience, and then having similar types of shows where people know the RHAP name and then are coming in and it's like, oh, okay, they're covering this show, or I'm not watching this show, but I'll listen to this podcast because that this is something that is from RHAP.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up on the screen here your RHAP lineup. It's right here, right?
Yep.
So these are all the shows that are part of that podcast network.
Yep.
So some of these shows you're the host of, like the Survivor show,
Yep.
the Big Brother, right?
Big Brother, I do a podcast about Big Brother, but we have one host, Taryn Armstrong, that's really like the face of our Big Brother coverage. He is the guy for Big Brother on the internet.
So yeah, so how many of these shows are you the primary host? Or are you doing? Is the
usually
Amazing Race still going on?
Amazing Race is still going on. Season 36 just premiered last week. I did actually step back from the Amazing Race podcast coverage. I had been hosting the Amazing Race podcast with two of our other hosts, Jessica and Mike, and I just this season stepped away from that. So they're going to be having Amazing Race guests on this season. But I've gone 15 seasons of hosting the Amazing Race recap.
Yeah, wow. 6 podcasts a day. That's what you said? So you've been like guest hosting on other shows, right? Is that?
Well, hosting, I am on like a lot of these other podcasts that are there, but then we also do like original content for our patrons. So we are doing content that's for, exclusive content for the patrons who are, supporting the podcast as well.
Yeah. Don has another question. Don McGuire from Facebook here is there a feature that will combine comments with from all the destinations as now it's not possible, or am I missing something? Well, it's really the capability of the destination to share that information if they have an API that will connect back. I'm sure Streamer would love to have commenting coming in from all of the destinations, but if the platform that we're working with doesn't support that API, that two-way API or one-way API, it's not possible yet. So we keep pushing hard on that, and hopefully all those will realize what's possible. And that's even coming to podcasting to some degree, that ideology, because as part of the podcasting 2.0 initiative, which is basically an upgrade to RSS, that there is a tag in there that will share comments across all of the listening apps and platforms that has that kind of process. The problem is a lot of the big podcasts listening platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify don't really want to support comment sharing. So it's just one of those things that the smaller apps are willing to do it and support that tag. But the bigger ones are more reluctant because they want to keep that traffic on their platform.
But
So
in terms of the comments that come in on the videos, I mean, I feel like that when I'm doing a StreamYard and like when even on this, people that are commenting on YouTube, on Facebook, on
oh, it
Twitch, you
seems
know, that I mean, they're all there.
it's a lot, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure which one is missing. Do you think, Rob? I mean, obviously Instagram isn't going to be in there.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
But
not
I think
sure.
if we were streaming to Instagram, I think we'd probably be seeing those.
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
hmm
About that particular platform. I don't know about Twitch. Does
hmm
Twitch?
Yes.
It does. Okay.
Yes.
So I mean, all the major platforms it looks like are supported, right? On the
hmm
commenting. So,
Any
so
ones that matter.
well, that's true, I suppose, if you
hmm
think about it.
Yeah.
Um, it says, okay, so Square Table Degenerates writes, goes back to the days of AOL chat rooms in the 90s. If anyone is like dirt, old, and remembers these days.
hmm
Well, I did participate in some AOL chats back
Yeah.
in the day myself, so maybe I'm old as dirt, so who knows? So anyway, thank you for the comment here, and I'll pop up another one here, and it's like Tristan writes, they all appear in the studio, then you can bring them up on the screen. Yes,
Yeah.
that is
Just
very,
like
very
this.
true. Just like what I just did to you right now.
It's very meta.
Right. So, well, Rob, we're getting up to the top of the hour, almost an hour into the program, and
Is it almost time for a giveaway?
well, we're getting there. So I did want to ask you a couple more questions and get
Sure.
your thoughts on kind of as you look at your legacy as being an online content creator for so many years and stuff like that. Do you feel like that the purpose that you started down this journey is still aligned with how you started, or
Yeah.
I realize that when many podcasters, especially today, start, they are thinking about, well, I want to make a living at this, right?
Yeah.
But if you go back to the very early days of podcasting, that really wasn't the motivation as much. And so that's changed, which is okay. I mean, I think it's great if you can make a living at this, but was that your goal of doing this, or was it just because you wanted to get
Yeah.
involved in creating content?
Rob, so adorable to think that you thought I had a purpose when I started doing this. I did this because I
Well, I
had
did when I
nothing else
started,
to
but
do.
oh, okay, you were entirely bored, right? Is that what you're
I
saying?
I wouldn't say that I was bored. I would say that I was without any real path. So I had been working in LA for a few years. I'd worked at a production company that we were very early in on creating content for YouTube. In 2008, our company that I worked for lost its funding, and so I was basically on unemployment. I was without a job, without any prospects, and I really thought that if I had like put up a shingle on the internet, I registered the domain robhasawebsite.com, which is still the website for our
Yeah.
podcast. And I thought that okay, if I start writing some funny blogs or articles, maybe somebody will hire me. And as I was listening to more and more podcasts, I'm like, oh, I should do a podcast also. And so I started up the podcast, and I was just playing around in 2009. And in the beginning of 2010 was when I started officially doing the podcast, talking about what was happening on Survivor every single week. And I also
Right.
would talk about some other TV shows along the way. And there was never a thought that this would be my job. There was never a thought that not even that I would make money, that you could make money from doing a podcast. That was like I thought eventually, like after a year, I said, I'm going to put some Google AdSense on my website. Okay. I hope people aren't going to get mad if I put up some banner ads on my website, because I don't want people to think I'm just doing this for the money, for
Right.
the 10 cents I might get from
Yeah,
putting
Rob,
up.
you're just a total shill, aren't you?
Yes. Yes. And so And that was really it. And then a couple of years after that, I started like looking at like different like affiliate ads and starting really playing with like Amazon affiliates and having people click on my link for Amazon.com and then go buy your stuff on Amazon. And then try really like that was basically the sponsor of my show. Like this episode of Rob's Podcast is sponsored by Amazon. Like, go to the website and click the banner and then buy whatever you need to help support this podcast. That was it. It was not ever a thing that I thought could potentially be, what I did full time.
Do you think that it was ever a big advantage for you that you were a two-time kind of
Sure.
survivor,
Especially in this space, in what I did, a lot of people knew who I was. So I don't take that for granted. That's how a lot of people knew me. But it wasn't necessarily like I turned this on in 2010 and people instantly knew who I was or like, knew me from like I played on Survivor. It was in 2003. It aired in 2003 and 2004. And we did not have social media like that back at that time. So it wasn't like I was like way ahead in the game. Like I had 100,000 Twitter followers. Like when I started the podcast, yeah. I think I had 1,000 Twitter followers when I started the podcast. So it really has just been brick by brick for 14 years where many people like may have like stumbled across that. Oh yeah, I remember that guy, but it wasn't necessarily like that people, like I announced I was doing a thing and everybody came.
Yeah, I remember I was a big fan of Survivor back in that time frame, and I would watch every week. So I saw your appearance, but I had no idea that I would eventually become friends with you and get to know you or anything like that. But I saw, I was a big fan of Jeff Probst, and I've actually met Jeff and did a podcast with him down in LA back in 2005.
Oh wow!
So it was part of. My wife was picked as the CBS television network podcaster.
Oh, cool.
And so we went down to Los Angeles and we did one of those radio kind of festivals in the old Price is Right studio.
Yep.
In I believe it's in the old was it the Studio City or
Television City?
Television City, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's where I met Jeff and did like a 5-minute podcast with him, and it was put out on the CBS website back then. And I was the producer of it and had microphone and access to the conversation as well. And so I always thought Jeff was this terrific guy. And in that conversation with Jeff Probst, I asked him about podcasting, and he told me even back in 2005 that when he was out on location filming, that he would that's how he stayed in touch with what was happening in the world, because he was off on some deserted island somewhere, right, producing this show, and that's how he stayed connected to what was going on back home to some degree. So he was a big podcast listener,
and now he's a podcaster himself. And he has an official Survivor podcast.
Yeah, I should have him on this show. So if you know him, I mean, it'd be great to have him on this show. I'd love to talk with him again.
Okay. Well, that he doesn't do a video podcast is the only thing.
He doesn't, huh? We're gonna have to work on him on that. So you just did an interview with Jeff, right?
Yes. So I recently had the 5,000th episode of Rob as a Podcast. And so that for the 5,000th episode, we reached out through CBS to Jeff Probst and asked him if he would come and do an interview for episode number 5,000. And then he joined us. And I thought it was a really great interview. I was very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I think it's on your homepage, isn't it?
On the YouTube homepage.
Oh, that's right, on the YouTube homepage. Right. I think it's right up. Okay, let me share this screen here. I believe it's this one right here. So, but he did video with you.
He
So,
did do
right?
video with me. Yes, we got him on a
Was your
Zoom call.
special though,
Yeah.
Rob?
Yes. So that
Because you
was
knew him on stage or on the show. I
way
didn't
from
know
way
him.
back when. Yep.
Right. Back in the day. Right.
Back in the day, right? Just right before he did the podcast with you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That was well because his show was part of that fall season lineup,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was interesting being down there in that early days of the larger media networks really supporting podcasting. And I did a podcast back in those days about the Boston Legal TV show
Yep.
as well, and so it was so both of us I kind of had an early entry to some degree into the podcasting about TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like it's really turned into quite something special. But so you've never I've always wanted to ask you this. I don't know that I have, but have you ever had any kind of a real, like, deal with any, like, CBS or any of the networks, and did
No.
you shy away from that?
Um, I didn't shy away from it. It was never offered. It was never something that they came to me with. But I think we would do a good job. But we create so much content around the show for the people who love the shows. I mean, I guess they don't have to necessarily pay me anything. I just do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, because I always thought, and this is kind of, part of the the whole genre that you're in is that I always felt that having too much support by
Yeah,
the content creator of the reality shows would be detrimental to
it
your
would be.
your content.
Yeah, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but then if they make a stinker, then we can't say.
You can't say anything bad about them. See, that's the thing. Or if you bring on, let's say, a producer from there, that's what's a little bit probably a little dicey about having Jeff on, right? Is because you
Yes.
can't really talk about any forward-looking
Well,
things, or you probably don't feel comfortable maybe talking about
Rob,
difficult situations.
there's been that's the thing that there's been such a push and pull over 14 years of they're happy with us. The network is mad at us. The network is
Yeah.
like, okay, they want us to promote the thing. Then we made them mad again. It's been quite a journey over 14 years. We're in the doghouse. We're back. We're
Yeah,
so
it's
back in the
those
doghouse.
yeah, it's those PR people that are probably always after you for getting a positive spin
Mhm.
versus your job for
Yeah.
your
But
community is to bring truth and reality, right?
right, right,
Which
and
seems ironic
and we
because these
have
are
to
reality
do
shows.
that, or people wouldn't listen. But I will say the thing that I feel that I've told this to the people in the like when the PR people have doubts about us and like I don't know. It's like, listen, we love the shows. Our audience are people that love the shows. We don't want to see the shows get canceled. We're not trying to take the shows down. You have to trust us. And there's plenty of people like that talk about these things that would love to see the shows get taken down. And that's not us.
I would think not. But,
Mhm.
but it's also, it's that tension really is what's powerful. I know that the ABC folks, when I was doing the Boston Legal podcast, would occasionally send, let's say, kinda like, almost like 2nd or 3rd tier, actors onto the podcast,
Mhm.
and occasionally, we do a conversation with one of the actors from the show, but they were never like, James Spader or William Shatner or any of the kinda
Mhm.
lead characters, but to some degree, you've done that a little bit, right? Where you've had kind of like those featured characters, on your podcast,
Yes.
and
Well, easier to get any of the Survivor contestants than Shatner.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Though, you can try, right?
Mhm. Yeah. If you know the right
He's
people. Yeah.
Bill Shatner has I've talked to his people many times.
Yes.
They've always wanted him to have a podcast, and it just seems like, I think I've talked to him like 3 times. Can you help us do a podcast
Mhm.
with William Shatner? And it's like crickets, crickets, crickets afterwards. It's almost like, he really wanted to do a lot of video. Is
Yeah.
what it came right down to it. He wanted to be on television and he wanted to do that.
Mhm.
The whole podcast thing. I I think his daughter was trying to talk him into it, but he never
Yeah.
really pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know. I think we're talking a little inside baseball here, aren't we? Just so everybody knows, I used to live in Los Angeles too.
Yes.
Not that we saw a lot when we were there, but I used to work for Podcast One, which also is the company that I does Podcast One still represent you?
They do not.
They do not. So you've moved on from Podcast One. Okay.
Yes.
I I think that was a smart move, but
Mhm.
that's just me.
Yeah.
So we should probably move on here. Time is running out. I appreciate everybody, watching tonight. Rob's a terrific guest to have on. I think we've ventured into some fun with this program, but I think it's also, it's a serious conversation, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to help content creators kind of learn the ropes about podcasting from the inside and give them ideas on what they can do based on people that have been there and people that are in the trenches, trying to create content. And this convergence with video is certainly such a compelling thing. But what do you
Yeah.
see on the horizon here as we kind of wrap the show up, and then I'll do the giveaway here. So if you want to get entered into the giveaway for the StreamYard Duck and a StreamYard mug, type in hashtag the yard into your comment field and you'll get added automatically to the giveaway. But I wanted to talk to you about what you see in the industry, podcast industry, around trends, and how do you see yourself beyond what we've already talked about around the kind of evolution of video?
Yeah.
What things are you seeing that are concerning you or that you see as opportunities?
So the thing that I think is very much on my mind in podcasting is that I kind of feel like that we had, a big boom in podcasting in terms of like an explosion of growth of people who started podcasts like around the time of 2020 for a variety of reasons. People
Yeah.
had time on their hands and were looking for, things to do while there was not a lot to do in the outside world, and it was like a very like attractive thing to do for people to start podcasts. I think that we are in an era of consolidation in terms of podcasting. I feel like that a lot of those podcasts that were started during that time may not be lasting. I think also we were in a very interesting time in terms of, as you were alluding to, streaming versus downloading, where I think that in terms of like where that all these podcasts would just get auto downloaded. It seems like that in terms of at least what Apple is doing, that they're moving away from automatically serving out all of these podcasts. And I think that that's really having an effect on downloads in the industry. And I think that there are a lot of the companies that were producing podcasts, I think, are also maybe getting out of the game a little bit. So I think that just overall in the industry, I think that there's just like a contraction around a lot of different podcasts. For me, I'm just so excited about like the video aspect of podcasting and how many people are tuning into these streaming video platforms like YouTube and discovering the podcasting there. And so I think that I'm just like very much changing up the way I'm thinking about creating podcasting all these years in, where I think I'm looking at what's the title of the podcast. I think that's something that I never really thought about too much before. That I think I used to think about things more from like an SEO perspective, as opposed to now I'm trying to think about things more from the perspective of how do I get somebody to click play on this podcast when it comes up in their feed. When somebody is scrolling through their list of podcasts, how do I get them to hit play on my podcast as opposed to one of the many others that they might have in their podcast feed? So I do think that there are a lot of great things about the video, but I also think that the things that we're learning about the video are helping to make us better content creators in terms of making the podcast.
Yeah, I would totally agree that I think that what's happening with YouTube is changing the the practices of regular podcasters to some degree. I
Mhm.
agree, focusing on, and then also Apple recently adding support for their own tag around episode art.
Mhm.
Are you doing anything with episode art these days?
Um, so no, I would need to look into more of what Apple is doing with the episode art. That's another one I have not heard about yet.
Yeah, because they had this tag for the longest time that was in the RSS to support, but Apple didn't even support it themselves in their own player for
Mhm.
like 3 or 4 years.
What's the
It's almost
size?
kind of
Is
like
it
a
is
joke
it
in the industry.
square?
It's a square. It's the same size as the regular cover art.
Mhm.
I mean, you can put in there 300 by 300 or 1400. It's usually 1400 by 1400 is what you want to probably put in your episode art, and
Yeah.
that should work okay on mobile devices and things like that. But you're seeing a lot of people play around with artwork now more than ever, and I think that the YouTube kind of experience that people are going through right now about creating thumbnails and things like that is creating kind of like a renewed interest in doing some things that are more fun on the artwork side, and also AI being
Yeah.
able to generate these episode artwork in chat GPT or midjourney or any of these kind of creation platforms is also something that we're seeing rapidly develop. And I believe that the podcast hosting platforms are going to increasingly support generating these based on prompts that come out of metadata.
Mhm.
I believe Blueberry just announced some AI tools that will automatically generate that episode art for you in the tools.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's kind of where we're going with this, is that increasingly the AI tools are going to be integrated into the bigger platforms, the publishing platforms, and will automate some of this stuff. It'll pull the transcript, and then it will do the summary, and it'll populate all of your descriptions and it will give you a selection of potential titles of what you want to title things at. And I don't know about you, Rob, but I get those suggestions in the AI tools, but I rarely follow them. I don't
You know,
approve of them. I always change them.
yeah, for what I do, like I don't know how much more they could spice up without like knowing intimately like what the content is about, where we're recapping an episode of a TV show.
Yeah. Oh, got it. Yeah. So that's important, for what you're doing, but if you recap it too much, is that in text, is that not good too? Because you're not getting people listening or watching as much, or
In terms of like the description,
yeah.
no, we probably like our descriptions. I think at this point in time are very light. So,
Oh, they are. Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So yeah, I think that the AI stuff is going to change things. Is there anything else that you're seeing in the landscape, maybe around monetization type stuff that is rapidly changing right now?
I don't know about rapidly changing. I think that the like direct response ads, I do wonder like what the response rates are these days, where it's like you hear the same sponsors across all of these different podcasts, and the average person listens to so many different podcasts. They could only see one therapist, you would imagine, and so you're hearing like the same ad across 6 or 7 podcasts that you're listening to. I can't imagine that the response rates are like incredibly high right now for the advertisers. And I do wonder if that might be another thing that we see shifting in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. So up on the screen, Don McGuire asked another question. A majority of my shows are 1.5 hours. When will StreamYard allow you to restream shows over an hour? I think they're actually working on that. I think they would like to support that. Yeah. So when you say restream, I'm assuming you have a recorded show that you want to
Yeah.
stream as live. So I don't know that they get a lot of demand for over an hour, but I do believe that, that's something they're probably working on. And then Ryan Carmichael also gave us a little bit more detail on that guest behavior thing. And I guess there was some harassment, bullying, and threat and nudity. Wow. Okay. So
Is that it?
that's
I
the
mean,
trifecta of problem child, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
sounds like pretty mild episode.
right. Yeah, I'm sure that garnered some audience while it lasted. So,
Hmm.
so anyway,
Ryan,
well,
what's your handle so I can subscribe?
right, totally. Yeah. And then it looks like we've got another one. So, got to pay higher pay grade for the professional plan. So I guess that'll give you the 2 hour.
Yeah, I believe that we can stream a 2 hour
Right.
episode on our.
Yeah. So if you're on the lower plan, it's probably more
Mhm.
limited. Right. That makes sense. So
Mhm.
I'm going to pull up on the screen the giveaway, and we can start heading down that path because I'm sure people are getting anxious that they would like to get on with their evening. And let me make sure that this loads and we have everything in here. So let's share this tab, and we will activate this and add to the stage.
Here we
And
go.
if you haven't entered the giveaway, this is the magic time to jump in there and give us your hashtag the yard. And I'm going to activate some music so we can have a good old time and we can celebrate the winner at the end. So let's go
It's
ahead
getting very exciting.
I know we're pushing the envelope here, Rob. So wouldn't you like to win? Do you have a
I do not.
so we may have to send you one. So we'll see.
I have space for it behind me.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you drink coffee too, so you might be
Oh,
able
how
to-
much? I need all the mugs.
Okay. So I don't know how many of these things I've given away over the months I've been doing this, but quite a bit. So
Yeah.
so if you want to get in, it looks like we've got let me look at how many entries we have now. It looks like we've got 35 entries. Well, I think we can get that number up a little higher, I believe. So jump into the comment field and type in the hashtag the yard, and that will get you into the giveaway, and we can get it above 35 entries,
Mm-hmm.
which would be fantastic. I think we've got like 800 people watching live, so it would be great to get some more entries in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say there's more questions coming in. So Beauty Bubble writes, also your community must approve for the comments to come through to your broadcast. Okay. Let's see. Anything else? So it looks like I haven't seen the number go up. So I'm going to go ahead and I think hit the drawing, and whoever wins. So
Okay.
let's do it, Rob.
Whoever wins wins.
Right. Gets the goods.
Yeah.
All right.
Miscellaneous magnets.
magnets. Woo! Yeah, baby.
Wow. They snuck in there. They were quiet.
They definitely were. And
Mhm.
so my comment to you, miscellaneous magnets, is to send me an email with your address, and let me pull up on the screen my email address, and send it to me, and I'll forward it over to the StreamYard marketing team, and they will get you out your Puddles
Mhm.
Duck in your mug. So very cool. And if you're not currently a StreamYard user, I do have a kind of like a promo code here that you can use to get a free trial of StreamYard. Just go to StreamYard.com/RobG, and that'll get you into the platform, and you can start your own show. And if you're interested in following me a little bit more with some of the other YouTube stuff I'm doing, I've got a couple other shows that I do. I also do a show called The New Media Show, which is live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific or 3 p.m. Eastern. And then that would be noon Pacific. So anyway, and I'm also on X, at Rob Greenlee, and then I have a website, robgreenlee.com. And Rob, I'm going to pull up your stuff too, so people can check out your podcast and join you. Just Rob has a podcast, and you also
search
have
for RHAP wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, and then you also have another one called Rob Has a Website.
Rob Has a Website is the web. Yeah, I think they both point to the same thing.
Yeah, I think they all land in the same place. And then your YouTube channel, if you want to go check out all the videos that Rob has on YouTube, and it looks like he's expanding much more into the YouTube side of the world.
We're going crazy.
You are, and just like me, I'm doing like 5 shows a week now or so. So it's keeping me busy too, Rob. So so I want to say thank you to everybody, and Miscellaneous Magnets. Be sure to send me your email and with your mailing address, and I will get your stuff shipped out to you as quickly as possible. So thank you, everybody, for spending time with us tonight. I feel really, really lucky to have had Rob on the program with me tonight. He's such a great content creator, and really, he's so good at building communities. So, like I said, thank you so much, everybody, and I'll be back with you next Thursday for another episode of Podcast Tips with Rob Greenlee. And next week, I'm going to have a couple of folks on that are experts at being engaging on camera. So that was going to be an interesting conversation that will hopefully make us all better as we launch and do our shows on video. So anyway, good night, everybody. Thank you, Rob, and have a terrific evening. And I appreciate all your comments and questions. Sorry if I didn't get to all of them. Please keep coming back and asking your questions, and we'll keep doing the show. So good night, everybody.